Hey guys, Shay here from Fool on a Journey, and I am doing a spiritual book review on The Devil's Notebook by Anton LaVey. Now, I do appreciate there is debate on whether or not this counts as a spiritual book. Not because it's on Satanism. I do appreciate that is a religion. I just mean in that this particular work was more of a kind of like a personal Q&A almost, like people who had frequent questions about Satanism, so he answered them. And because I felt like a lot of his principles and ideas were definitely laid out in this, I feel like it had some spiritual relevance, or at the very least, very thought-provoking. Know your own mind. If you don't know the answer to some of these questions, if you're very easily swayed by this or can easily reject it, maybe you should see this as something that you should work through. So I came about this because if you watched my review of the Ritual Abuse Tarot, I vaguely mentioned that I fell into a serious rabbit hole of sort of studying satanic panic and all that was going on with satanic ritual abuse. You can find on YouTube, the amazing source that it is, some old interviews that were addressing satanic panic that were done with Anton LaVey, because he was the founder of the Church of Satan and the author of the Satanic Bible. And I found the way that he spoke to be incredibly fascinating. I couldn't quite get a grasp on what he was really trying to say Satanism was, so I wanted to look into it. So I ordered the Satanic Bible and this, and I kind of wanted, all the reviews that I had read said this was more about him personally and his personal views and sort of more of an in-depth look into him and his mindset. So I really wanted to do this first so that I could sort of have that view to look through as I read the Satanic Bible. So just know that my personal opinion of the man is, while I don't know that you could call him a genius, is that he knew people. He knew exactly how to get the reaction that he wanted from people. He was a brilliant manipulator, which is fascinating. And you'll sort of see that in the little excerpts that I kind of want to go through. So let's walk you through here. Let me make sure I'm in frame. Oh, sorry, I bumped the tripod again. Okay. So quick little, you'll see these are all just a couple pages long. They're like little individual essays sort of deal going on. And then I did tab, I'm not going to, open to every single tab, but I did tab some things. There is some really fascinating stuff in here, but I do sort of want to start you off with a couple things that I underlined right off the bat that I think were a good overview of what I think his philosophy was and how he sort of approached thought and life. The real politic application of principles that favors accomplishment over consumerism and individual power over herd mentality. And that's what Satanism, from his point of view, is about. It's not about any kind of conformity. It's about non-conformity in the most true basic sense. Accomplish your goals, set your own goals, do not set them based on societal standards, and then go accomplish them. And that is essentially a successful Satanist, which is really fascinating. Let's see. It is a studied and contrived set of principles and exercises designed to liberate individuals from a contagion of mindlessness that destroys innovation. And that's really what it is. It's an obsession with self to the point that you are ignoring everything else and finding your true inner self. Now, I feel like complete and utter obsession on self may be harmful to the extreme, but I do think a lot of people could use some more of this in their life. So just a couple other excerpts. Let me find some stuff. We are in part or in whole responsible for our own problems and those of the multitudes. So we're sort of, we're creating our reality, and he sort of walks through all of the different ways that your perception of reality is being warped by TV, by newspapers, by, whatever it is that you're doing constantly that connects you to other people. Your reality is being warped instead of really just seeing your life for the way that it is. This is brilliant. I am going to read this to you. I'm sorry if this gets long because I'm reading a bunch of excerpts. I'll try to keep it pretty brief, but I feel like this story that he's about to tell, and I want to read it, it's only about 4 paragraphs, explains to me his entire outlook on life. This, to me, is exactly what he was doing every time he showed up to an interview in his black cloak or wearing horns or with this huge pentacle on his chest. Like, this is what this man was doing. And if you don't see that, then you're one of those sheep people that he was telling you to avoid. Okay, so let me just read this. There was a hermit who lived in a deep wood near a small town. Once each year, on the first day of May, he would stand at the wood's edge for a little while. Then he would go back in the woods, not to be seen again for exactly 1 year. He had done this for 20 years, and the only reason he was ever seen was because the children held a maypole dance in the clearing at the edge of the wood. After the 5th year of regular appearances, he became an institution among the townspeople. In fact, it became a feature of the festivities to gather and wait for the hermit to make his appearance. Soon the hermit became the town's best-known celebrity, solely on the strength of his yearly appearance. On the 21st year, he did not appear. Near panic ensued. A search party was formed for the wood, and the wood scoured. The hermit was nowhere to be found. The townspeople sadly returned to their homes and stores. The next day, the hermit came walking down the main street of town. Everyone ran up to him and told him of their concern and how glad they were to see him. They insisted that he stay in town and not return to the woods ever again. They not only took care of him, but elected him mayor. He was not really a hermit, nor had he ever been one. A hermit lives alone, without human contact. That man simply had infinite patience and a responsive audience. He was a good showman who became a politician. And if that isn't hilarious to you, I don't know what to say. I thought that was hilarious. I laughed out loud. I read that to my husband a couple of times just because it was brilliant. But the way that he thinks about people and how you get people to react, I feel like this is an incredible sum of what Anton LaVey has been doing, or has been trying to tell people it's possible to do. A lot of it is really him trying to say, if you just look at something on the surface, you're being tricked. You really need to evaluate what's going on here. If this dude was really a hermit, he would never look or talk to anybody. Why aren't you looking into that? And so I think that's really fascinating. Oh, this was really great. So he's talking about here where you can be inspired, like what you can get inspiration from as far as your magic is concerned and as far as your ritual is concerned and your practice. One's personal delvings can be considered a cult in the true sense of the term only if they remain outside the pale of supernormal faddism. So anything that you're doing that's a fad is now not a cult, because a cult was secret. So if you're doing anything that everybody knows about, you're not doing anything secret. The would-be innovator asks, if I cannot find food for thought in the source material akin to my interest, where then? The answer is found in the analogy that one does not find oneself, one creates oneself. Magical power is accrued by reading unlikely books, employing unlikely situations, and extracting unlikely ingredients, then utilizing these elements for what would be considered occult ends. After one has observed the results of such creative unions, what was originally considered unlikely will be seen as the most easily understandable methodology. I loved that. I loved the whole idea that you can be inspired by anything, for anything. There is inspiration to be had literally everywhere. The books that you're reading don't have to be occult, they don't have to be witchy, they don't have to be spiritual, they don't have to be pagan. If you're getting something that you can apply in a way that betters yourself or your life, do it. That's magic. I like it. Oh, I love this. Okay, so what he's talking about here in this hilariously named chapter about vampires and vicariousness. Living vicariously through things is great if it's helping you feel something that you want to feel. The other thing that he's really talking about here that I wanted to touch on is the people who talk about something the most, or there's a saying that people who talk about something the most are doing it the least. It's specifically in context of talking about sex. But I think it's a really good one for the occult and magic. So many people are on YouTube with, spiritual and witchy, YouTube videos and how to do this and how to do that. But I think that it's up to us to really discern, do we think these people are actually practicing? Are these people actually practicing? Or did they just make this, the YouTube videos or the Instagram to be a part of the scene without really being deeply involved in it? But I definitely think that's something that we all sort of need to look into and ask ourselves that question. Am I just talking about this? Am I just reading about this? Or am I actually practicing? This is really fascinating, his definition of magic, or his sort of discussion on Crowley's definition of magic, because that's the definition I'm about to read. So, if the definition of magic is the change in situation or events in accordance with one's will, which would, using normally accepted methods, be unchangeable, it would seem that any successful magical working is an act of nonconformity. The greater one's natural degree of nonconformity, the greater one's magical powers. One's will, particularly as it pertains to magical success, is an important commodity, but strong-willed should not be confused with willfulness. Just about everyone nowadays is an extremely willful zombie, blustering along on wills not their own. Grim determination abounds, but it comes second-hand. Its motivation does not emanate from the creative region of the brain, only the response centers. This was really powerful for me, and I actually had to stop and journal a lot about it, because when you think about the big causes that are going on today, is that your cause? I mean, or do you really feel that cause, or did you just jump on a bandwagon of a bunch of people who are screaming about it on Facebook or on any other social media? Get with your own cause. Be strong-willed about the things that really matter to you. Don't just react to other people's fights. Or stances or whatever. I thought that was really powerful. I think that that's something that we're seeing a lot right now on social media. Like, there is sort of that idea of the, as soon as someone puts something up there on Facebook, or a Facebook post or a tweet about, well, you're looking at it like this, but have you really ever considered? And then suddenly there's 1,000 people that are, liking this tweet saying, yeah, no one's thinking about this, and absolutely, let's defend blah, blah, blah. Did they really think that? I mean, did they really ask themselves that question? Or did only the first 50 people really like it, and then everybody else just kept liking the tweet because so many other people did? Like, let's really start asking ourselves, is this something I actually care about, or is this something that I'm caring about because 2,000 other people cared about it first? This is a comment on general social behavior and about removing yourself from, well, removing yourself's too extreme. That's not really what I mean. It's really more about saying, are you aware of what your beliefs are? Because, so here's the quote that is brilliant. If a wrong is gotten away with, and someone else repeats it and also gets away with it, a right is birthed into existence. The wrong becomes righter each time it succeeds. This is very true. This is very true. You need to have your own, all of your own opinions, all your own moral stances about what is wrong and what is right. They really need to come from you. You need to spend the time really deciding what it is that you believe. And I really feel like the true value of this book, as short as it is, as sweet as it is, as sometimes hilarious as it is and ridiculous as it is that it's really emphasizing the importance of having your own stance and having your own opinion and really analyzing things for yourself, or you will be one of these gullible people who bought into the hermit who showed up for one day a year for 20 years just so he could take over your town with no effort. Like, you either are one of those people who gets bought in by that, or you're somebody who sees it for what it is. And the way that you become one of the people who see the truth is to ask yourself who you are and what is your truth. What the purpose of Satanism is and what he really means to do. And I find it particularly interesting whether you are Christian or you are interested in Satanism, or you are just a solo spiritual practitioner, whatever it is that you are. Satanism is dangerous because it encourages originality over herd mentality. Large masses of people who all act and think within a prescribed set of opinions are much easier to control and exploit. And I feel like a lot of people try to either ignore or simply reject out of hand the fact that we know that a lot of religious practices and religious traditions were created in order to control people. I'm not saying that all religions are bad. I'm not saying that all of their doctrines are bad. I'm just saying that organized religion got organized to control people. And if you are only following the organization and not the teachings, you are missing a very big point of any and all religion. So this is another sort of idea, another perspective on the idea of magic and imagination, and how magic is your imagination and your magic is only limited by imagination. If you don't have the ability to imagine what could be, you will never change anything. You won't look at anything and say, well, it'd be better if. If you never go there in your mind, then you will never really do anything, which is essentially a very, very short sum up. It's a longer chapter than the other ones of what he's saying here. But, and specifically, he's talking about, the things that you go and do in your mind can be just as affecting of your personality, of your spirituality, if your experiences are mentally, they're all internal. It's all things that happen while you're meditating or when you're alone in your sacred space. That does not make them any less valid just because they didn't happen in, real life per se. Just because it's quote unquote artificial does not mean that it isn't real and cannot seriously impact you. So I did really like that and wanted to sort of end there. The very end of the book has some pretty hilarious, just little, my husband calls it smartassery, where it's just cute little quotes. What good are friends if they don't do you any good? I never met a person who loved everybody I didn't dislike. Just, irritating little things, but that are funny. If you would like to see the back, there it is with a picture of Mr. Anton LaVey. There is a biography that was written by his wife. I have not read that yet. I don't know anything about it. I really wanted my idea and perception of him to be from his work first, but it is definitely on my to-read list. If you're interested at all in any of these things or in Anton LaVey, I definitely suggest starting with watching some of his interviews on YouTube. They're really fascinating. If you have any opinions about his thoughts, about any of the things that I read, please leave them down below. And as always, thanks for watching.